Hi everybody. So in this video we're going to be discussing procrastination. So let's look at what exactly is procrastination. The official definition says it's an act or habit of putting off or delaying something requiring immediate attention. To put it in a different way, we are putting off work that urgently needs to get done. And please have a look at the word habit. Yes, procrastination can become a habit. So there are pros and cons when it comes to procrastination. Now, unfortunately, there's only one pro, and that is immediate gratification. So what do I mean by immediate gratification? Well, let's say, for example, you're studying for an important exam, but instead of studying for the exam, you're watching movies on your laptop. Now, watching movies is a pleasurable act, or it gives you pleasure, immediate pleasure, and that is immediate gratification. As you can see though, there's several consequences when it comes to procrastination. At the top of the list is stress and anxiety. So as you're watching those movies on your laptop, there's always that nagging sensation in the back of your mind that you should be getting back to studying for your exam. Now, being stressed out can also lead to a lack of sleep. So let's say, for example, you were supposed to study for the exam, but you were actually watching the one movie after the other, and before you know it, the day is over. Now you're going to bed feeling stressed out and worried, and that is where the lack of sleep comes in. A third consequence is lower grades. If you're not going to be putting in the time into your studies, your grades will reflect that. Poor quality of work. Let's say, for example, you had to do an assignment, but you left it until the last minute. And now, of course, you've got to rush through the assignment. The consequence? A bad quality assignment. A fifth consequence is that sense of always being rushed. There's never enough time because you always leave things until the last minute. And so you hand in things late and your work is of poor quality and you're just always feeling rushed. The last consequence is disappointment. Disappointment in yourself. And disappointment can be deadly when it comes to motivation. Disappointment in yourself can kill your motivation being here at university. And so you can see it's very important for us not to engage in procrastination. So why do we do it? Why do we procrastinate? Well, there's several reasons. One of them is perfectionism. For those of you out there who's perfectionists, you might often have this experience of forever chopping and changing a task, resizing it, tweaking it, rearranging it, yet never finishing that task. Because you want the task to be perfect, it's an endless cycle of trying to get it perfect but not finishing it. Another reason is lack of clarity. I often find students in my office telling me, I couldn't finish my assignment because I didn't know the exact parameters of that assignment. Or I couldn't study for the exam because I didn't know which chapters to study for. So if we have a lack of clarity when it comes to completing a task, we often find ourselves avoiding that task. Another reason is I'll do it later, and I'm sure a lot of us can associate with this one. That is the lie that you tell yourself by saying, I'll do it later, there's enough time to study, or there's enough time to do the assignment. And then you find yourself studying for that exam a day before the time, or rushing around to start up an assignment a day before it should be handed in. Another reason is small tasks. And what I mean by small tasks is doing small, menial tasks instead of doing what you need to be doing. Example of this is, let's say you have to study for an exam, but instead you find yourself washing your clothes, doing the dishes, cooking food, vacuuming the carpet, or rearranging your desk. So you're engaging in tasks that's not important instead of doing what you should be doing. And then another reason is temptations. And I hope that all of you out there knows what your temptations are. For example, some of you might know that studying with your boyfriend or your girlfriend might be a bad idea because that can lead to temptation. Or perhaps you're sitting at your desk and whilst you're studying from your textbook, your laptop is right next to you. And you know that if you start watching that series, you will not be able to stop watching the one episode after the other. Then the last reason is feeling overwhelmed. And that kind of overlaps with a lot of the other reasons. So if you leave a task until the last minute, if you decide that you're going to study for the exam a day before the time, you could feel overwhelmed when you realize the amount of work that's lying in front of you. And instead of doing that, you might want to avoid studying for the exam. Let's say, for example, you have quite a big assignment to do. And as you open your textbook or you start reading through the parameters of the assignment, you realize that this is a huge task that you have to complete. And immediately you start feeling overwhelmed. And once again, once you have that sensation of being overwhelmed, you'd rather avoid doing the task. So what triggers our procrastination? I'm sure most of you have heard of the saying, shooting yourself in the foot. And that is exactly what procrastination is. Once you start procrastinating, it's like shooting yourself in the foot. And so it's important for us to know what triggers our procrastination. Maybe it's a sense of feeling overwhelmed. Maybe it's that lie that you tell yourself by saying there's enough time to do it. Maybe you've got a lack of clarity in how you should complete your assignment. It is so important for you to reflect on this and to figure out what is your trigger when it comes to procrastination. So how do we break this habit? How do we break this habit of procrastination? If we look at the images here, once you start feeling stressed or overwhelmed, simply count from 5 down to 1. And when you reach 1, simply start working. Don't think about it, don't hesitate, just start working. This is called the 5-second rule. So let's look at the steps. As I've just mentioned, we have to acknowledge when we're feeling stressed. In other words, what is our trigger? Once we've identified our trigger, we count backwards from 5, and when we reach 1, we simply start doing the task immediately and work for 5 minutes. If you can, perhaps for longer. So let's quickly break down these 3 steps. And let's use an example. So say, for example, you have to study for an exam and you perhaps feel overwhelmed. Then you start getting stressed. And you know what your procrastination habit is. So let's say, for example, once you start feeling stressed, you start watching a series on your laptop. Now, before you start watching that series on your laptop, I want you to count from 5 down to 1, and without even thinking about it, simply start working immediately. And this is, of course, the trick to the 5-second rule. Because once you employ this technique, you have to commit to start working immediately. So as I've mentioned, once that thought pops in your mind that you want to watch a movie or a series, count from 5 to 1, and when you reach 1, simply start working. Even if it's just for 5 minutes. We need you to have that sense of accomplishment, that you've accomplished something in that 5 minutes. And as time goes by, and as you employ this 5-second rule, you will find that you might even start working for longer, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. Who knows? And then the last point I want to discuss today is, of course, motivation. I want to encourage all of you There's a video out by student counseling called Motivation and Goal Setting, and there I discuss how motivation can improve your performance at university. Now, motivation becomes very important as the breaker of procrastination. In other words, those bad habits that you have. Why? Because I want you to start realizing why you are at university and what the goal is of being at university. And if you can reflect on this, perhaps even on a daily basis, that will motivate you to work instead of procrastinating. Okay everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video on procrastination, and I hope you feel more confident that you'll be able to break those bad habits. I want to encourage everybody, if you need any more information, please contact us at Student Counseling. You can email us at student-counseling@cput.ac.za, or you can phone us on our District 6 campus or our Belleville campus.